Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Bilco RPRS7. This is a lock assembly. It's a replacement lock assembly for their typical roof hatches and is comprised of several different parts. Here is the lock body itself. Inner workings there. We're going to go over these parts with a tape measure as well. It helps assist people in determining if this is the proper item to replace, a broken roof hatch latch. So here's the lock body. This is obviously the inside portion that you're looking at, and let's go over it now. Overall width, 5 3/4. Let's go to the center now of the screw holes. 5 inch is what I'm seeing there. Okay. Overall depth of the lock body, about 2 3/4. Overall height, or thickness I suppose, about 1 5/8. Let's get a tape measure on the end of that on the end of the lock body so you can judge where the latch is in relationship to the overall body. And again, these dimensions are really just to assist in determining if this is the proper item for you. If you've got a dimensional match against this and what you have, you found the right lock body. Okay, now moving on, we're going to put the lock body aside. By the way, this is zinc plated, which is what gives it its brass type tone. That's a corrosion resistant sort of coating that's going to be on here, which would be very normal and typical to have on something exposed. Okay. Now, here we have the exterior handle assembly. Handle. The ability to padlock it. Spindle. Rubber gasket, because you're going to have some fasteners that will pierce through the lid. That rubber gasket's going to obviously help keep the water out. You've got an inside handle with a pin. You can see that the spindle's got a hole in it, and that's obviously intended to mate together. Okay, right there, and then you would tap that pin in through. An angle bracket, another angle bracket, and we're going to go over these in a moment. And then a strike, all zinc coated, and a bag of bolts. Okay, now, there is a link below this video to the installation instructions, and let's take a look at those now. At this point, we're going to go through these installation instructions basically step by step. Fast forward all the way to the end of the section. The last page is really a parts diagram of all the constituent items that you're seeing in this area. There is an anomaly. Page 10 of the installation instructions calls out a 4.5 inch center line of these holes. That's not the case. According to Bilco, that was the case years ago, but for some reason there's not an updated dimensional drawing showing 5 inch. It's 5 inch is the bottom line. So back at page 1, at this point we're going to go through the installation instructions step by step. If all you wanted to do was view the item superficially or topically, we're done. Otherwise, here we go. So installation instructions for the turn handle assembly and single point lock assembly. Obviously open the cover door, and this is the step by which you're going to go about removing or thereby installing. The first thing to do is, if you're going to remove it, you're going to need to drive out this pin using an 1/8 of an inch punch, tempered steel. You're going to drive that out as shown in figure 1. Okay. Using a hammer, step 3, strike the punch so that it knocks out the pin from the handle as shown in figure 2. Moving on to step 4. Once the pin has been removed from the handle, pull out the handle that is located inside, well, you're going to be able to, once the pin's removed, you'll be able to pull this off the spindle. You're going to have a washer that's going to be there. Be careful not to lose that. You'll want that in case you happen to washer. Although you're going to get a new one with your installation. Let's table that. There's only 4 of them in here. It's looking like, oh, there is. Yeah, it's actually already down on the base of this material. So at step 4 in figure 3, you'll want to retain that washer because I'm not seeing that one is actually available in the package should you have one. I don't really believe that it's going to be necessary, but if you have an extra washer, I would place it there, provided that you have the margin, which you would. It's designed for that. Moving on to step 5, tap handle shaft with the hammer gently so that you can actually extract the exterior handle all the way out. You'll tap this out and be able to pull it out. That's shown in step 4. Oops. Okay, moving on to step 6. Now that the handle, shaft, and washers have been completely removed, use a 1/2-inch socket wrench to remove the 5/16 self-tapping screws from the cover. Make note that the screws are slightly different. Because they're slightly different, the screw closer to the edge of the cover is the standard, while the other is a slightly smaller low-profile screw, as shown in figure 6. And quite frankly, all the screws that I'm seeing here are indeed low-profile screws. What they're saying is this is the proper orientation. Underneath here is where you would need that low-profile screw. Over here, you could get away with a higher profile screw because your staple of the padlock capability does not ever actually rotate that far. But all the screw packages that I'm seeing, all the screws in the package here are low profile. Again, apparently this installation instructions from Bilco are a bit outdated, but it doesn't really matter. We can easily determine what it is. So they want you to remove those with a 1/2-inch socket, pull the 5/16 bolts out. Okay, and if you're installing it, you're just going to do this in the opposite fashion. Okay, moving on to step 7. With the screws removed, the padlock hasp and the gasket can be removed from the cover as shown. So once you have this screw and this screw removed, you will be able to pull all of this out, okay, along with the rubber gasket. So moving on to step 8, if you're replacing a single point lock, continue to steps 9 through 11. If you are only replacing the turn handle, skip all the way to 12. So assuming that we're doing everything, using a 1/2-inch socket, remove the 4 self-tapping screws from the cover. Okay, so moving on now, they want you to, using that same 1/2-inch socket, remove these 4 bolts. You're obviously going to have this bracket that's going to be very apparent, which is going to be here. That will come off. So your installation, again, will have that bracket. Okay, you'll get all of those bolts removed. That's going to come off. This is going to come off. Step 10, now all the components of the lock can be removed from the inside cover, as shown in figure 9. Starting the process over, installation, which is step 12, installation instruction for turn handle assembly and single point lock. Start the installation by lining up the gasket over the holes in the cover, and that's obviously going to be on the exterior. Okay, it's already stuck down over the template. I'm tempted to just leave that on there. Position the padlock hasp over the gasket. This assembly is already put together, and use your 1/2-inch socket to tighten the self-tapping screws back to the cover. That's going to be these bolts. The gasket should spread slightly when the screws have been completely tightened. Be very careful, don't over tighten this. That's just a relatively thin gauge metal. You could certainly, with a socket wrench, strip that hole out, and then that would be a bad situation. So just hand tighten, that's all you need. Do not forget to make sure the standard screw is the larger of the two screws. Again, they're referring to the head of the bolt, and all of these are the same. It's referred to in pages 6 of 7. If you're reusing all your old stuff and you have these different height heads, feel free to reuse them. I would definitely reuse the bolts, actually, and save the new ones. Moving on now to step 13. Step 14 shows what the proper installation looks like. Step 14, now take the handle attached to the shaft and pass it through the hole. I'm going to say that you're going to do all of this together. Just turn that counterclockwise. Obviously, if you can't get inside of there with your socket, you're going to need to pull all this out. There are 3 washers that are mentioned in step 14 and shown in figure 13. Those all need to be there. Now this is going to be sticking through. You're going to move to the inside with the shaft through the cover and lock. I don't believe the installation instructions mentioned reattaching the new lock, but please do that now. With the shaft through the cover and lock, place 1 washer on it flush with the lock, and then position the other part of the handle over it. That hole is only drilled in one orientation, so you have to be something like this or something like this. Now, there are only 4 washers in this package, and none of the screws call out requiring a washer under this hex cap screw, which in essence has a washer. So at that point, because it looks like you're going to have the screw package, has the 3 washers that they mentioned here and the extra 4th washer that will go here when the handle comes over. So insert that there, or reuse the old one if you still have it. And then go ahead and tap your pin down with the hammer, as shown in figure 15 and 16 and 17. With the pin in place, hammer it through to secure the handle's position on the interior. This step completes the installation of the turn handle. Then back to the last 2 pages, which show that incorrect schematic drawing and then the parts drawing on the final page. Let's get a dimension of the handle. About 4 1/8 inch overall length. About 1 3/4 inch or so projection. This is the strike that you will have the ability to mount to the sidewall, which is not called out anywhere here whatsoever. Okay. Now your strike we mentioned. The final component is this angle piece, and this is certainly to be attached to that same sidewall so that you can padlock the door from the inside as well, which makes a lot more sense than padlocking it from the exterior alone. You know, you'll have to think your operation through. If you intend to go out to the roof, you'll want to padlock it on the inside and obviously not on the exterior side. But if it's a condition by which you never need to come in, well, you get the concept. If you padlock it on both sides, you'll have to have access to both sides, obviously. Bilco is a company that I'm very preferential to. Here's why. Their replacement parts are accessible. It's crucial. Making an investment in a roof hatch, something that will become a part of the building, which hopefully will last decades. Getting access to replacement parts and being able to get them shipped relatively quickly and having them priced relatively inexpensively is absolutely crucial to being able to have useful service out of the significant investment in a roof hatch. And I find that that is a trait that sets Bilco apart. Another reason I'm partial to them is because they are responsive within a normal amount of time when there's a technical question or processing orders, etc. These components are available. Some of it's available in stainless as well. In the website below this video, you can link to their manufacturer's page where you can then pull up and review their catalog. Okay, so you can look at their entire opening. They do roof hatches. It's the thing that they do exclusively, and they do it very well. If you have any questions on the Bilco RPRS7 replacement zinc-plated chromate sealed lock assembly or any other Bilco product, please feel free to reach out to us.